supposed to have a storm.
Bitter.
No, but there was a hail, 50-mile-per-hour winds. There was a warning
There
on my
was,
phone.
I heard some
It
thunder.
looked pretty.
Yeah, I think it
stormy
passed
driving
over
there.
us.
It's as close as we get.
Yeah,
Well, I needed the rain for my garden.
I know. I've been having to water a lot, and my garden is huge this year. So it's
Do you
like
have tomatoes yet?
I think we're going to Brandywine's, these heirloom tomatoes.
We have heirloom tomatoes, but we don't have any.
We're very far ahead, but we get about
When
14
did-
hours.
When did you start?
Some things we direct sowed in May, but we have things started indoors since
No complaints.
after
In
around
May.
February.
I've been hiking at all.
Hiking?
Yeah,
We're
right,
in
okay.
Florida, March.
I do, but not this
So
summer.
we only get here the 1st of May.
It was
Hopefully it's
my,
not.
I just did
was
my
my
thing
therapy this year.
Smart.
2 weeks ago.
Oh my god.
No,
Forgot how hard that is.
I was at
I don't have
the
anything.
beginning of
Basil.
on 3 hours sleep and crazy wind and completely shrouded clouds with Chris Paulson and a big camera, and he's like, "Come on, let's go," and I'm like, "You know what?
No.
No, this is not the day to do
We
it."
were like, I took 6 teachers up there, and the day before it was cold and windy. The day after it was cold and windy. The day we went there was
Oh, this is
perfectly perfect.
Oh, great. Okay, well, we have a quorum. It is 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Why don't we open with a public comment? Does anyone have any comments from the public they'd like to express?
Hi, Michael.
I am saving you from seeing me.
Oh.
He hasn't put his face on yet.
He hasn't put his face on it yet.
All right, let's move on to the approval
Feeling shy.
of the minutes. This is from June 21st, last month.
So motion to approve the minutes from 6/21/22.
Second,
Okay, motion moved by Jordan, seconded by Dave. Any discussion?
well done again.
Thanks.
I concur with Jay. He takes excellent notes.
Thank you, Michael, for continuing to do it.
Sure.
All right, if there's no further discussion, Arlene, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Michael?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I vote yes. It is unanimous. Okay, so let's move on to discussion of the feasibility study. Mark said he was going to hopefully join us by Zoom. I guess let's just first start by, do we feel like the report is complete? So this is the one he sent us, dated June 2nd. So the most recent one that we had at our previous meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was complete. The comment I made, there was no note made of the expenses of operating the system, and I thought that was a little odd. So I would maybe ask him to put in a small paragraph on that.
Okay.
I think he said it was subsumed within his assumptions, but if you were reading it, you wouldn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other thoughts on our study?
it's pretty comprehensive and clear. I mean, and it puts us, although in an unwanted ballpark, we are in a ballpark.
Yeah. I mean, it's where we thought we were, but now somebody else has said it.
By a factor of 2.
Mhm. Does anyone feel like we should still be pursuing on some level building out a municipal system?
I think we should have a long-term planning capacity to do it and see how it goes with LCI and see how they do over time if we work something out with them. So I wouldn't assume that this conversation's over or this due diligence is over.
I guess I would say that the feasibility of doing it in the current environment sort of puts it on hold but I don't think we should just abandon it somehow. I don't know what its life support regimen is, but something that we should have.
Well, at least we have the blueprint. We've got the study.
Right. We know coverage pretty much from our old studies. So we do have certainly more information than we have.
Yeah, Jordan?
Well, I'm a big fan of parallel efforts, in kind of any way in life. So, I mean, I think we're doing what we have to do, and we're pursuing the most likely solution to the problem. But like Jay said, in a way, to keep it on the back burner and still keep it moving with momentum. I mean, I don't think that it would hurt the committee or the town at all to take this through as far as we can on our own. That doesn't have anything to do with the other side of the equation, but I just think that it's, if anything, it's good experience. Maybe that sounds silly, but I mean, from its inception till now, we've gotten a lot done, and I feel like gaining that experience until the end of the line, pushing through, is an important thing. But we've got to pursue what's realistic at this point also.
How much further does that mean I don't understand.
Well, until a solution is met. That's how until there's a concrete solution to something, I think it's good to keep all the options going.
Sure, but what are the steps that one would take? I mean, I think we're sort of settling on on a course. I don't know what we can do in terms of building our own system while we're at this point. And what is it? Is there a concrete step along a parallel track that you see?
I don't think necessarily towards actually making that happen, but continuing to look for grants, continuing to reach out and making connections and networking and kind of building the tools that we have to help try and solve this. That's what I was thinking, not so much, it's just like the shotgun approach.
Sure, okay. I wasn't sure if you had a specific.
No, just continuing on the course that we are right now.
Yeah. I agree. Grants are incredibly important now to look at.
I just think we've reached a consensus at this point, but as we know, the environment keeps changing. And certainly to record where we are and what we have right now and what the situation is at the moment is important. But that's not an end. It's not a static point. It's going to be open for review as we go forward.
If in 2 years the prices have come back down to 3 million and there's 2% money and LCI won't answer the phone, then
Exactly, right.
And I was, if a benefactor in Lincolnville wanted to donate $2 million, which I don't think.
Thank you, Josh.
I don't have $2 million to donate, but which I don't think is out of the question. But you can't really plan.
We need 3 of those.
Yeah.
And then we'd be all.
I don't know why, but that one was heavy.
So do we need a summary at this point of where we are? Since we're sort of tabling that, do we need to acknowledge that in some manner?
A summary
as we
in
go
the study,
forward?
or?
A summary of the study where we're sort of shifting our course here. We've done a lot of research on our own build out. That seems unfeasible in the current climate. We're tabling that. Do we need like a position statement that, or will it be obvious that we've changed course as we go forward?
Well, aren't we, just as a matter of good order, what is the formal requirement we have to the select board? I didn't hear I haven't heard any of the select board meetings, so I don't know if it was discussed, but I'm assuming that there needs to be a formal, because the town paid for it, So there needs to be a formal report to the select board from us,
From the survey activity?
well, from the broadband committee in general, saying, here's what's happened so far. We've completed, we received this Axiom report, and here it is, and here's a copy. We've done this survey work ourselves, and here's what we found, and that should be a written report. At this stage, whenever it is we decide to file this, we, the broadband committee, recommend, based on everything we've done and the learning of all these steps, we recommend the following. It seems to me, if I were on the select board and I'd paid for the study, I'd want a statement like that from the broadband committee as a matter of good order. And that would, by definition, have and therefore, the next step is, and fill in the blank.
I had been assuming that we were, after some feedback from the select board, that we were going to have that conversation with LCI before we got to the step that you're talking about adopting kind of a more final or semi-final position. But are we thinking that, and for one of the reasons was, I mean, LCI may be reading our notes and watching our meetings, but you know, the further we commit to that position, you know, a final, we're not going with a publicly supported system. I think we lose some leverage with LCI. So I was hoping we went to LCI sooner than later, but are the selectmen looped into where we're heading, or?
So at our last meeting, or I guess at the meeting before our most recent one, we informed the select board that the committee would like to send 2 people to have a conversation with LCI.
Oh.
And so there was discussion on who those 2 people should be. Some members thought it should be the 2 select board members on this committee. Mike thought he didn't have an opinion on the people. He liked the idea that the committee chose themselves, those 2 people. So the next step is to give the document on how to have this conversation with LCI to the select board, which they should be getting that in their next packet, and then to discuss that in executive session, sort of the next steps for how we should have that discussion with LCI. So they're very looped in terms of.
So you, I mean, so my point, it was simply a process point, not a substantive point.
Yeah.
Is should there be a transmittal of the report marking the end of the period, making it clear that he should be paid his final bill, saying their, Axiom's work is done.
Yeah.
Here's the result of it. Now we move forward, or do we hold off on that official end of the consulting until we do the LCI contact?
Yes.
Didn't they want us to talk to legal as well?
Yeah, that'll be part of that conversation.
Looping in legal.
Meaning?
That's the selectmen are going to loop legal in with the 2 representatives.
We don't have to do that.
No. They're going to lead with the 2 representatives that are going to speak with LCI. And then I would think from a process perspective, we should wait to deliver the final transmittal until we're done. That's what you were saying.
I'm looking at the charge
Yeah,
rate.
keep access.
The charge calls for, we have to do 2 things, but
What does
it
it
doesn't
say?
say when. And we
So, right. So the charge says, let's see, so number 4 is oversee work of the feasibility consultant. Number 5 is forward with comment, the feasibility study recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. Number 6 is move forward with any select board recommendations or supplemental charge arising from 5. And so Mark submitted his invoice and sent that to David, and David said, before we pay this, is this the final version of the report? Is this
Right.
ready to go to
Right.
the select board?
Right. That's why I'm asking this.
And right, so I was initially, before we started this meeting, thinking we would go around and say, are we good with this report? We are, okay, let's send it over. But I now think we shouldn't do that. We should give our final comments on any changes we want for the report to Mark. We should all carefully reread the study, and at our next meeting, put together our comments on the report, and then it's ready to send to the select board. I don't think we need to wait to do that for the conversation with LCI necessarily. I think we can send it with comments saying we recommend that we move forward with having a conversation with LCI about partnering with them. The outcome of that conversation, I don't think needs to hold up giving the selectmen the report. I also think the selectmen would rather see this sooner than later.
Yeah. It'd be nice to get Mark paid.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I would like to not have a loose end. And I think officially, especially according to what you just read, our agreement with our charge was we are supposed to forward with comment the report to the select board.
Yeah.
And comment could be, we think this is great. We've already gone back and forth with the consultant. We've already asked our questions, and we're, satisfied. We have no further comment. At which point the select board may have, but we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think in good order that would be a neater way to do this, personally.
And I would have the comment be more of nature of, here's the report, which we accept. But our next step is to negotiate with LCI, so we're not coming back to you with our recommendation yet, but that's coming after we do the LCI process.
Absolutely. I'm not talking about a recommendation. I'm saying transmitting the report either with or without comment, saying this is done, it's good to go, we can pay this guy, it's finished, we're not, and then, we are recommending going ahead. And by the way, I would also say to them that we've done this survey work. I mean, I don't know if that's been reported.
The road,
We're doing it.
we're doing it, but I don't think we've told them.
There's been some
Yeah.
updates.
But it's not done.
But I don't know how much.
No, it's done. I've been back and forth with Mark the last few days, but he's gonna take and map it now
Yes.
so we can actually tie it. The work I finished from the last meeting was basically confirmed with one exception, the exact map that Tidewater had provided.
Okay.
I identified one exception to that.
What is that exception, as long as you're mentioning?
It was South Cobtown Road.
It's good to know.
South Uptown is not covered, but they say it is.
I can't remember which way it is, or I think it's how far the road it goes
Okay.
of South Cobtown.
So I was wondering, once we have issued the final report with our comments, once the two people have been selected for the negotiations with LCI, and we've met with legal, the select board is fully looped in. At that point, is it necessary, well, first of all, is it helpful for the broadband committee to be, I guess, looped into the conversation with how the negotiations are going, or at that point, should it just be a select board conversation? I think one way to look at it is if those conversations are just with the select board, then it could be done in potentially in executive session, because then it's almost a contract negotiation, whereas a broadband committee is, we're having public meetings. Yeah, Steve.
What are folks' thoughts on typically for the report to the board? Josh has been doing that nicely. Should we at one of the meetings get a bigger number of this committee to attend to, because there's so much nuance to what we've been going through. There's so much detail that the board may have questions, but also Steve, you may have comments, or David, or whatever, that would add to educating the board and moving forward the best way possible.
Yeah, when we issue the report, that would be great if everyone could, as many of us as possible. That's fine.
I mean, typically you would roll out the plan and have that, but do you want that happening before you go to talk to LCI? I think you kind of keep things on the,
We may give them the report in advance.
yeah, and then we,
But-
then we have.
The final conclusion.
Right, and if, that, I'm very comfortable with the two selectmen being the representatives. And I think our committee should, dissolve sometime soon. I don't think it would be quite yet. I mean, I'd like to hear what you guys find out, and I think some of the people on this committee could then help. And this probably is not gonna be a one conversation
Oh, certainly
negotiation.
not.
So at least during your negotiations,
Keep forgetting that it's going to go.
keep us alive, I mean, who knows,
Yeah.
But then wrap us up, close us down pretty soon.
Well, September 30th is the end of
There you go.
this unless the selectmen.
Yeah, that's a
reappoint.
good time frame.
Well, we have a lot of work to do before we can talk to LCI, though.
What's left?
What are we going to talk about? Primarily, what are the, we're sending a couple of ambassadors there, and with you should know what the game plan is. If point A fails, what's the fallback for point B? How much do we give? What do we say is negotiable? What isn't negotiable? We need that down distinctly, I think, and not just, we've sort of roughed it out through our conversation here, but I think we should have something very definite in mind. And I also think that if possible, that we should have some input on the path that we're going to take from MCA/Main Connect people, because they are currently have another initiative out, the so-called all-in, part of which is the Reach Me stage. They have $20 million allocated, whose purpose is complete service to the last mile. And the goal is that to connect everyone who wants to be connected. Now, that seems like that's an opening for us to phrase and coach our negotiation so that we can fit in with that, with their blessing, hopefully. Maybe tie into that with LCI.
Where are we with the document from the second document from Mark?
He sent it to
We
all
got
of
it.
us.
Okay,
We got
I've been
it.
totally swamped
Okay.
the last
We got it.
several
Yeah,
days.
We got
so-
it.
That'll be
I've read it.
the next agenda.
I didn't get it this time either.
No.
I have a new
No,
email,
I've
so
been
it's.
all over the.
Well, he sent it to all of them. Well, again, in terms of process and sequence, which is very important, we already have agreed that we're going to have this conversation with them, and we've already agreed that we're going to go for a sort of public-private partnership approach, and that will depend on the rules from the Maine Connectivity Authority about available grants. So in my mind, there is a reason to have a conversation with them up front that says as much as I've said now. But since none of us, neither them nor us, to my knowledge, and you should correct me, Jay, because you've been following this closer, the Maine Connectivity Authority still has not issued rules for the bulk of the money.
No, I would say they're getting closer in terms of framing that, because they've taken some money and they've put it into 4 tranches, one of which is middle mile, one of which is for grant preparation, and then this other one is this Reach Me, that last mile initiative. So I think they are trying to nail down some of those categories and put some specifications to it. They do mention that complete service to the last mile, they mentioned affordable, and they mentioned 100 over 100.
How about public-private
Public,
partnerships
that's important.
receiving a preference?
Yep, that's important.
So that, to me, is the most important gating item. When that is available, that is what everybody should be looking at, that piece of paper, which are not from us and which apply to any town in Maine. And that's what should be, and I'm not current on that. I'd love to see how far they've gone. But if it's developed enough and clear enough, like, for example, there's a timetable and deadlines and dates and a description of what has to go in the application and how the applications are going to be scored and whether or not you get points for X, Y, and Z, including what level of service, what cost, public, private, all that stuff, which I know was what they were discussing, including, but I haven't actually seen it yet in black and white.
No, and I don't think they are at that point yet. I think it's still categorical.
Okay, because at that, to me, the substantive conversation has to happen after that is nailed down. We can say, this is what our intention is, this is what we're recommending. We can have the meeting that says, the initial meeting with LCI that says, this is, we've been at this for a while, we've done, a lot of homework, and this is where we've come out. We know what's happening in neighboring towns, and so forth. And we know that there is going to be significant new funding. What we don't know are the specific rules and the timetable for applying for that new funding, which is what we would like to do together with you as soon as it is known. Which at that point, there's not really a need for, and that's a nice meeting. That's a positive meeting where there's really no action required other than announcing that we'd like to apply together as opposed to you applying individually, which some ISPs have been doing in Maine. They have been applying without the town.
Yeah.
But are you suggesting that we put off the discussion of speed and quality and customer complaint type of issues and just talk about partnering on monies to, get everybody connected? I would have some conversation. I've always liked your sweetener approach, but I would also, the first time I met with them, I'd want to get their attention saying, the reason we've been doing this over 3 years since you came to see us is deep unhappiness. And we've documented that. And we think working together, we can get that right. But are you willing to share with us speed across the town? Here's our goal. Can you meet it? If we get these grants, can you make sure we get to everybody? The pricing thing is going to be a brutal discussion.
Yeah, but that is in the criteria. There are.
So maybe that backs you into.
Yes, and Mark's point and my point is this little town, should not be the one saying the price should be between this and this, the speed should be at this level. It should come from the Maine Connectivity Authority, who's the check writer.
Perfect.
And at that point, we're not the ones making this up.
Yeah.
We're not the ones coming to them with demands. I'm not sure that going to them and saying, by the way, did you guys know that people are not 100% crazy about your service and your costs? I'm not sure as a
But that's not the
negotiating.
question. Are you willing to do something about it?
Well, yes, but to me, it's, we hope you're willing to do something about it because otherwise we can't get this money.
I mean, it's like dropping a breadcrumb. That's what this first meeting is. It's just something to wet their palate, and I mean, I think if anything, a bolstering would be good, oh, wow, that was, maybe I'll think about that.
Yeah, well,
As Jay mentioned a minute ago, and I did some research with Jim Troutman on some of these programs that are coming out, and the Reach Me program that you mentioned, I'm looking at it right now because I want to refresh myself, but it's what we were just talking about. It's last mile, reaching every household, which is our core issue actually on our network, other than from a network perspective, 100 by 100 and reasonable cost share per premise.
Right.
If we got those three things, that's pretty darn good.
I like that.
Right.
Can you say those three
Those
again?
three reach all homeowners. Fiber to the premise at 100 by 100 and a reasonable cost share per premise.
What's the website for that?
That's the main connectivity.
Yeah,
And this is under the umbrella of the all-in program that has the 4
Yeah.
discrete phases. And the goal of that all-in program is to connect everyone who wants to be connected by the end of 2024.
That was Governor Mills made a pronouncement, right?
Yeah.
So I would think the first conversation we have with them, I think it's important to be honest and be on the same level of information, saying, your people are unhappy, your cost, your speed, and the lack of fiber to people's homes because it's out of reach are atypical in the broadband world, and the town would, is interested in exploring a private public partnership. Would you be open to changing some of these things, and not getting specifics, but being like, would you be open to being flexible on these sticking points, and then also bring up the fact that adjusting those will bring up our chance of getting grants.
Right, and I would not bring up any unhappiness factor initially. I think that's a dead end. But it should be obvious to them that even for the connections they have, many of the connections do not meet the current definition of adequately being served. Either it's not 100 by 100, it may not be affordable. So the implication is there that you might have your cables out there, but it's not meeting, it's not passing muster, and we want to help you get into a level field there and be in conformance.
Rule number 1 of negotiations, sit and listen for a while. And they may fall right in your lap, and they may not. I mean, they may be really looking to solve this problem because it's their home turf.
The other carrot we had was the notion of, I would mention the fact that there may be granting for drops that in specifically, because as Stephen and Mark pointed out the last meeting, that's their take rate right there. If the drops become transparent, then it's a win for them.
Yeah, I think that's inherent in this Reach Me program, this last mile initiative, that's definitely what that's addressing, and that's the roadblock that we have here in town, and we're willing to help on that if they can get their performance on.
So what is the goal of the first meeting with LCI?
I would say that the goal is simply to say, we know from the main connectivity authority that there is 70 plus 30 is 100 plus 30 is 130 plus 20, that there's $150 million already on the main connectivity authority website that they are doing rulemaking for. Of that, the 20 million for the Reach Me program is the one that is the furthest along in terms of clarity of process. The other 130 million, they still call tentative. And they have not yet done the clarity of the details. I can send this link to you. And so we're here to just say that we'd like to jointly apply for as much of this as we can with you, because the Maine Connectivity Authority has already said that there are 5 clear elements to this. Everyone who wants a connection can get one by the end of 2024. High-speed internet must be affordable for all. Community-driven solutions at a regional scale to ensure investment, scale, and public benefit through public-private partnerships. Consistent and clear processes through data-driven decision-making. So we'd like to go down this road together with you. We understand that there's still a lot of clarity awaited, yet to come, but we just want to say up front that we'd like to do this with you. The subtext being not you applying alone, not us applying alone, but us doing it together.
It's a partnership. Yeah.
It's a partnership. And at this point, with the lack of a timetable and the specific application guidelines, there's nothing for any of us to do except stay tuned.
Mhm.
The next board meeting is August 12th. They're public. The rules as they are made will clearly be made available publicly to everyone. Probably these 4 chunks of money are not going to be done at exactly the same time, because that's why I think they've broken them into 4 chunks. And so we're probably going to be in an application cycle, but we want to do it together.
Right, and one of the things we've learned from these past grants is be ready, because you don't know when it's coming. But it's off. A lot of it's first come, first serve. If you want to be at the front of the line when the money is handed out, so just means we'll want to keep an active relationship with LCI in order to jump on what's happening.
I'm going to send this link to everyone that I just read from.
Ask a question. When does the grant cycle start? Is it in October?
This doesn't say. I mean, I'm going to send out the link right now, and we should all be looking at this. But it doesn't.
I think that's what Mark said, was that it was going to start in October, but all right.
MCA has said that their goal is to start in October of 2022.
It said the kickoff webinar is July 21st at 12:30 p.m.
Wow, it's coming up.
So at least one of us needs to probably be there. I'm sure it's recorded. It is recorded. They said it's recorded. And then there's a form on here it's called the Preliminary MCA Funding Program Engagement. So, pretty soon, like next week, we'll already start knowing more.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm just about to send this, and I want to make sure which Perkins email address am I supposed to use?
Perkins email.
At Curtis Thaxter.
At Curtis Baxter.
Thaxter.
You used to use that, and then you used a private one, and then you're back to Curtis Thaxter. Is that?
I always used Curtis Thaxter, but sometimes people jump to an older one, which was clogging up the office and port.
Right.
So I closed down the office for 3 days with my old.
Okay, I just sent
Not
that
very
one
popular.
that one link, but I think
You would have enjoyed it.
that is, we should say that. I think we should have that kind of conversation with LCI.
Yeah.
And we should have our ambassadors named, but that's a very friendly, positive, opening conversation. And the real intention is to set the stage and prevent anybody from applying on their own, which has happened in other towns with other ISPs applying and then going to the town and saying, sort of as a fait accompli, here we got this money, and the town has very little ability to influence quality of service, cost, any of the other things that I know we all care about.
Could, do you know what was the deal in Hope? How was that arrived at? Do you have any idea?
You mean if they're satisfied, or you talk about the?
Well,
How LCI got the grant for Hope.
Oh, they did together. They
Their
decided.
deal from last year.
Yeah. They decided to apply.
I think they got one concession, which was they reduced the contract length to 1 year.
I think they may have eliminated it, but I don't want
Okay.
to speak.
Okay.
Bottom line,
That's what I was wondering.
we don't really know. We should find
It
out.
wasn't much. They didn't get much.
Yeah.
But that was a different grant cycle. Things are very different.
That was
Right.
Connect Maine.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
So when do the selectmen meet next?
2 weeks.
Week and a half.
Week and a half.
Yeah, we can now.
So couldn't you guys just get authority to go pursue Steve's, kind of, I'll call it the gentlemanly approach, to feel him out on the grants, and they're coming soon, and, I mean, you don't have to have a whole bunch of lawyers and
Right.
strategy to have that conversation.
Right.
And we want to do it together.
I think that's a brilliant way to approach the first meeting. We'll share that with the selectmen, and I don't think they're going to have a problem with that, because there's no bartering or negotiating, really. It's just
It's a process conversation.
Yeah.
It's not a content
And then,
conversation.
when you build the relationship later on, you raise the more strategic things of, can we have a contractual element to this? But if the state requires you to do that, then you can
Well,
say
that's exactly the point. And I have been in 2 conversations with the staff where this has been the point that's been made, not just by me, but by a whole bunch of people, that, every there are whatever, 1,100 towns in Maine, and we are by no means the smallest, and all of them are in the same place. And if you want a town of, 600 people to negotiate separately, one by one, with every ISP, and negotiate speed, cost, service levels, that's a very inefficient way to do this. And since you guys are the check writers, we're not saying you should negotiate on their behalf, but we are saying you should establish the rules of the game, which make it much easier for then everyone to just follow the rules.
So I guess if the rules are strict enough, it's possible that we won't even have to say, to work with Lincolnville, you need to follow these guidelines that we have. It's as simple as, here are the guidelines for the MCA. We want to be competitive.
It's like any grant money, if you accept them under very stringent, strict terms, and if you don't follow through with them, there are repercussions.
And probably what's going to happen, like with Connect Maine, is it's going to be in the scoring of the applications. So you get a certain number of points when it is a public-private partnership. You get a certain number of points when you commit to a certain speed. You get a certain number of points when you commit to a price band. You get a certain number of points when you commit to a certain take rate and marketing towards that take rate.
Mhm.
You get a certain number of points when you include digital equity. And all of those things, you're not required to do it, but we're just telling you up front that this is how your essay is going to be weighted. It's just like, a college essay, and you're going to get points for each of these sections. And we want to be, 100%. Right. And so do you, because we want to have our best shot at getting this.
So is it just to confirm, is it the sentiment of the committee that in the first meeting, we don't air any grievances, we don't say anything about, we want some concessions from you on this, we don't want to complain, we simply want to say basically what Stephen laid out?
Yes, but only just an exciting, new, possibly beneficial relationship that could evolve.
Start high level, go from there.
I think at subsequent meetings, at some point, you get into the expectations that you have to get the grants. You don't just let it go 2 months and then they go, oh shit, we have to do that, but that doesn't have to be upfront.
By the way, all of the stuff I just read out, the 150 million, was announced today. So it's
Yeah,
not
I
like,
saw 110 million in the paper.
well, it was July 14th, Maine Connectivity Authority announces 150 million to fund broadband expansion. So the press release was actually today.
Yeah, wow.
So we're very
Timing's
current.
Yeah.
Okay, so strategically, who should be the one to actually reach out to LCI? Should it be David Kinney? Should it be Mark Roulette? Should it be Steve? Should it be just the broadband committee?
Steve, do you know the higher ups there?
I've known the Manning family for 25 years.
I would go with the person who knows them, I would have the two selectmen, and I would have you make unless, there's some etiquette with the rest of the board, but.
I'm fine with that. I'd also ask, but I'd potentially ask David to make that first reach out for the meeting.
And I wouldn't because but this is just me coming back at you. I would want to start forming the relationship that leads into the meeting. I wouldn't necessarily want David to, but.
I think the difference there, and you may be very right on this, David's going to reach out to Alan Kinsey. I'm not going to reach out to Alan, I'm going to reach out to the.
That's what I'm saying. And that's the other thing is I would want to go to the principals and say,
yeah, we don't.
Figure out, we want the high level attention.
I would say we refuse any meeting with Alan. We say, no, this is with the Mannings.
Right.
This is between us and the Mannings. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll have a conversation with the select board. Okay. What agenda item are we on?
Let me just ask one question that came up when I think Steve mentioned symmetrical 100 by 100. Do we know anything about the existing fiber in terms of its ability to be symmetrical? I thought there was something weird about the back. When you were discussing, I think it was you, Steve, when you were talking about how they have actually been doing it. Is there not as much fiber dedicated? You need a fiber in each direction. But was there something weird about the back direction?
From what we can tell from the drive around, we don't have any detail to say even by the size. I mean, I can tell you by the size of the cable coming down 235 here, they could do enormous amounts. But when you start getting out the side roads, you can't tell the difference between a 36 and a 72 or a 128. You can't tell the difference looking at the pole.
So, but you had some conjecture as to why they might be offering asymmetrical?
That's old school. There's zero reason technically. They're using Calyx as their provider. If you've got a box in your house from fiber, it's a Calyx box. Calyx is one of the leading providers, and every Calyx system that's been out there for 10 years or more can do symmetric connections.
I mean, George, you have symmetrical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's old school dial-up, moving to DSL mentality. Is where that stuck.
What's so weird though is when I first subscribed to LCI Fiber in 2015, they offered 20/20, 50/50, or 100/100.
Yeah.
That was their opening salvo in Lincolnville, and I went with 20/20. My neighbor John Fishman, I think he started with 50/50. And then he wanted to go up to 100/100, and then they said, "Oh, sorry, we discontinued that." And he was like, "What the hell? You offered this?" And then said, "Okay, fine, you can have it." So I don't know what that means, but
What do you have?
200 by 200.
For how much?
It's a test pilot program to get feedback on higher speeds.
Okay, but for how much?
I believe $69.95.
I have 100 down and 20 up for 89.
Plus phone.
Plus required to have a phone, which I don't have.
And it took them 2 weeks to install it, and they
And
had
that
that
paid-
quarter of a mile driveway.
Did you have to pay for that?
No.
when
So we
is
know
your
they
when
have
is
the
your
ability to do these things.
when is your testing end?
I don't know, probably in 6 months or something like that. I think it was a year.
But yeah, I mean, you're an example of they can do it.
They've got 3 or 4 around town. According to Alan, I'm not sure who
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
For 4 years, my price to connect was $26,000. But then with the federal monies during the pandemic, because they had kids next door, they brought it in at no cost.
How long is your driveway?
There was, see, I'm on High Street, and there's no runs coming from the Lincolnville side, so they had to bring it from the Camden Road and Hope.
Yeah.
And there was nobody had broadband all the way along there, so they had to run it all the way down.
But paid for by the CARES Act.
Well, before that, they wanted us to do it privately.
Right.
And then the CARES Act, for the school kids.
So you've got fiber now in your house.
I finally, but for 5 years, it was like, you can do it, 26 grand.
Well, about the time they were bringing the fiber in, wasn't available on Youngtown Road. That was also the time that I think Dalton was firing up the solid mower. All of a sudden, Youngtown Road had fiber.
She probably did pay the
She
26.
probably did.
Probably did.
Have we segued into the discussion about LCI? I can't tell.
Yeah, it was a seamless transition. I didn't
Okay,
realize it.
I just want to make sure.
So, sorry, let's
Why
wrap
don't you
up.
recap what we think we just decided?
Well, let's wrap up the feasibility study. Let's get, so, you know what, let's go back to that because we're clearly in the LCI conversation. So to recap.
I think we said accept it. I asked you to have Mark add a little bit of commentary about operating costs. And I think we said send it to the select board without comment right now, saying we're going into talk to LCI, but here's the report that we've signed off on, get Mark paid, and then go have this conversation.
Okay, any other opinions or thoughts on?
Just give them the report, or give them the report plus our,
So Dave is
comments on it.
suggesting give them the report
just
for
the
now.
bare report.
These guys will explain to them what we're doing. You don't have to put that in writing. And then later on, our final summary of what we're
Okay.
You
recommending.
mean after we've had all the conversations with LCI?
Yeah, because there should be a public record of what we recommended. I just don't
Correct.
think we want to do that right now.
Mhm.
Right, okay. So it'll be done, it'll be put in context verbally.
Before September 30th.
Okay, is everyone good with that?
Yep.
Okay, and then we'll also ask Mark to include the poll study.
That's right.
So, Steve, I'm assuming you've already sent him all the information on that. Okay, so a paragraph about monthly costs to run the program, poll study, and then we'll send that to the select board. Great.
You
Okay.
might want to add just about the speed tests and what we did. I think I sent you information, just how some of us worked on it.
Oh, definitely. And it was in the Penn Bay
Yeah.
pilot today.
Yeah. Yeah, I sent everyone kind of a little report on it. I don't know if you got it. Everything that we've done in the last couple of weeks.
Now,
Do we know where we stand?
I can read.
we could check right now. Does that
Pardon?
is that really part of the report from Mark though? I mean, that's more from the broadband committee.
Separate.
No, that's an update.
Oh,
from the Broadband committee.
Oh,
Yeah.
just an
that's
update.
just that could be just an update.
Oh,
yeah.
got it. Okay. Let's see where we are with the how many people have taken the test in Lincolnville.
I think you said in your last report, Arlene, it was like 30%.
No, it was 36%, and then after the Penn Bay pilot, it jumped to 38.5%.
Well, it's 38.59%.
Of what?
What? Just what one just thing I'm trying to figure out is how many. I know more is better, but I did look at what other towns are doing, and they're really not pushing this as far as getting, a study done or a speed study done. So, and I also don't know for grant purposes, is there a threshold of a percentage for towns? Because on their website, they ask for 10%. So I don't, I don't know what I would say more is better, but
Yeah. Well,
that's something that, I'd like to find out.
we're past that. It says here total test. Let's see, test locations 379 tests. I mean, that's pretty darn good.
So does that imply that LCI's take rate is at least 38%?
No,
No,
that's the percentage of people that have used this. Oh, yeah, because LCI is DSL.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
It does.
I think a lot, yeah. And
Unless you got people in here that are
You can't
using.
measure your internet speed if you don't have internet.
Right. So it's not necessarily fiber, but it's some connection that
Any
LCI
internet
is
connection.
governing.
Some may be DirecTV. if they've gone to it, and because you put in your address, that's how you get.
Hotspots,
Some could be
hotspots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
some small
That's true.
percentage, yeah.
And it actually, well, it breaks it down. Fixed locations, 369, cellular, 10 of them.
Okay.
So at least there's that data. It's pretty remarkable here. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to let's go back to the LCI conversation. Is there anything else we need to cover? We're gonna have this conversation as a select board. We're gonna meet with the attorney. I would recommend at that point we try to schedule our first meeting. I don't see any reason to wait.
No.
Well, we should name our 2 delegates, and they should be the ones who reach out.
So I will make a motion that Steve and Josh represent us in our discussions with LCA.
Second.
Motion moved.
Second,
Uh,
I would say the
Second.
initial discussions, the cast of characters might change over time, but
Okay.
Who was the second?
Me, Paul Ty,
Got it.
who obviously is the worst negotiator since I pay the most for the worst service of anyone sitting in the room.
And you want to,
So I'm
and
the
you want
last-
to, you want to be nice.
So I'm the last person you want negotiating.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I think these decisions, while it's a nice gesture, I just think in the end, when it comes to this, the select board's probably going to be making its own decisions about, like, most of the things moving forward when it has to do with talking to LCI.
Yeah. But at least it documents what we
Yeah.
recommended.
Yeah. Okay.
So the motion is that we recommend Steve and Josh represent us.
Yep.
I think the sentiment of the board at the last meeting, not thinking of what Josh or I said, was that they wanted to go with the intention of this group, of this committee.
And who's the us that we're representing? The town? You 2 represent the town in initial discussions, or the broadband committee?
That's what I meant by
Which I didn't.
The
Broadband
committee. The committee.
Any more discussion on this? Okay. Call for a vote. Arlene, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Jordan?
Abstain.
Stephen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that is, wait, how many people are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 yes, 1 abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was the abstention?
Jordan.
Jordan.
All right. Great. So discussion about poll data collection, I guess all is there to say really is that it's complete.
Right, Mark has the data. What he said he was going to do next was have one of his people map it and tie it to the 911 database. So that should give us actual numbers of houses.
Okay.
Can I just ask, is what he has the document that you've sent around, or is it?
No, I took that along with the map that I was the one that LCI had provided and cross-referenced it and sent that up to him.
In what form? You mean a picture of it, or list
It's
of town?
it's the KMZ that I shared out to this group months ago.
Right. So you marked that up. You mean
Yeah,
you drew on that, or?
I provided that plus a list.
Okay.
One thing I meant to mention, Arlene brought up the results of the speed test. Stephanie Mack at MCA, I think I have this right, said that the FCC is going to accept the data from the broadband intelligence platform. They're going to accept that, and of course, one of the feeds into that is the speed test kind of information. So, so this speed test thing is, they play an important part in it because it is getting where it needs to go.
Right. That was my concern, that it would just be ignored, and I think it was previously.
I'm sorry, accept data from what? I didn't hear you said broadband something? FCC is going to accept data from,
MCA, in collaboration with Tilson, maintains this broadband intelligence platform, which
Okay,
is
great. I didn't hear that part. Okay, great, thank you.
and Stephanie Mack, I think
Yeah,
said that the FCC is going to accept that data as definitive as opposed to their bogus charts.
There's, I think, what I've heard, there's 5 sources of data being fed into the Vetro fiber map system that's being used, and one of them is the main connectivity authority speed test data.
For the main broadband.
Broadband, sorry, I meant, yes, main broadband coalition data.
Steve, can you describe, I think that the FCC is looking at internet providers now with something as far as their coverage called Fabric. Do you know about that? Different way that they're doing it?
There's several uses of that term, so I'm not positive. I don't know the context.
Okay, all right,
I
I'll have
don't
to.
know the context to
Yeah,
give it.
it's just basically not only it's basically the coverage, what they propose to do, who they propose to give coverage to, like it's the fabric of how you're, of what you're going to plan,
Yeah,
and
the
it's called
fabric.
Fabric, and it's basically more than just a speed test, but what is your plan for the future? And I thought that was something that they're starting to ask more questions, especially to the larger providers. And it was in one of the reports I read. I'll have to look again at it, or maybe Mark knows.
Hi, Mark.
Hi,
called-
good evening. I'm not sure what you're saying, so I just came in, but I'll try to act smart.
Okay. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm asking about something called Fabric, which is a new way that FCC is looking at internet providers and what they provide, more than just speed tests. It's kind of an overview of everything that they're doing as far as their connectivity. How are they hooking people up? What new, do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Okay.
But I will look it up.
Okay.
Well, since Mark's here, let's go back to start with the feasibility study. So, Mark, we were talking about the feasibility study and feel like it's pretty much complete. There's just a few things we'd like added to it, and then from there send it off to the select board.
I see. So the report, not my white paper or what I sent you on LCI, the original report. Got it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
The things
No
we
problem.
included is a paragraph just discussing the monthly cost to run a municipal system, the poll study, and I believe that was it. Is there anything I'm missing? Okay.
So let's discuss for a second. Monthly cost to run a muni system, meaning to the town, what it would cost for the town.
So it's kind of following up on the question I had for you last time, on the page where you had the financials, just something that would give a little bit more information to the reader about what the general operating costs can be expected to be for a system like this going forward. I think last time you said you kind of had those baked into the bigger numbers, but just maybe some explanation, someone saying, well, what about operating costs, with some commentary from you on that.
Got it.
in a general way. And then the second piece was Steve is giving you the data on the polls, and I guess you're mapping that out. If we wanted to include that with the report to the selectmen as well.
Did you have a suggestion? I'm not looking at the report. I haven't looked at it in several weeks. Do you have a suggestion where you would like that put into the report? Do you want me to take, I guess the question is, do you want me to take a piece of the LCI piece that I sent you this time, sort of wash it a little bit, put the map together and just say, if you were to move over with LCI, here's the situation kind of thing.
You're talking about your ultimate conclusion of why we go to LCI, that type of language?
Yeah. I don't have to, I can leave it out. If you just want the map and say, here's where you stand, that's fine too.
I think that's what we'd like for now. Yeah.
Good.
And so our current thinking is that we submit the report to the select board without a big presentation at first, have these conversations with LCI, and then at the conclusion of those, the committee will have our written statement on where we think the town should go and have a big presentation about that. But first, just send them this your study and
get you paid.
So you can get paid, and so the select board can have a copy of it.
Got it. Understood. Okay. When am I still don't think I have the data on the polls.
I've sent it twice. I got bounced the first time, I think because of the size of the KMZ and stuff. When I get home, I'll check again if you still haven't got it. I sent it a second time yesterday morning.
I've been known to miss things.
But it did get bounced the first time I'd sent it a weekish ago.
How big is the file?
I can't remember now.
Okay.
I broke it up.
Okay.
Sent it. I'll check when I get home as well.
So I did get from you in March, several months ago, Steve, the LCI map, KMZ.
So if you've already got the LCI map seemed to be what's bouncing for some reason. It's the data that goes with the LCI map. If you've already got the LCI map, then I don't have to resend that, and I'll just send you the data that goes with it.
Yeah, and this has, sorry to take over the meeting here, but purple previous fiber bills, red
right
fiber bills, right? Is that the right one? White?
Basically, that map is correct except for one data point, and from what we've proved out.
Okay, great. Okay, excellent. So you're going to send me basically something that has, or maybe even a line that says, Lincolnville Road should be, right, something like that, so that I can just look at it and we'll figure it out. And then I'll get it mapped in my own KMZ, because I'd like to, in this KMZ, does it have the associated E911 addresses?
No, it doesn't.
Right. So I'll want to do that. Okay, good. Perfect. All right. That may take me a few days. I've got to get this over to somebody who knows what they're doing and then deal with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Great.
All right, great. And then let's talk about the LCI. I'll go back to the LCI memo. Do you want to say anything about the memo, Mark?
Only that I could have kept writing for another 5 pages. I just felt like I was writing one long run-on sentence for this thing, because I felt like everything was interconnected with each other and everything matters, so to speak, when I'm thinking about how to talk to them. So I just want to be the committee to be aware that some of the perhaps, I don't know if they're finer details, because that's not really how I would say it, but so I would not overlook anything in that memo as not being important. As I wrote it, I was like, wow, this all has to sort of, when you're sitting there with them, you want to be able to have all of this data or all these issues sort of at the top of mind so that you can pivot from one thing to the next pretty easily, is kind of how I was thinking about it. And when I wrote it, it clarified my thinking when I started thinking about writing this. So I think it's in pretty plain language. I don't think there's much there that seems earth-shattering in any way. The big key takeaway, which is what we discussed last time from my perspective, is how do you help LCI push for a large grant, not just to serve the unserved homes, but to get the drops paid for so you can reduce costs to the homeowner. That really is the key point of what the town is bringing to LCI from my perspective. Don't know if that's going to be feasible in the next round of funding, because the next round of funding has not been formally announced, but you would think that the state would have interest in doing this since they put so much CARES money into the town already. You'd think they'd be interested in finishing this, essentially finishing off the project. And so, and the next round, I'm sure you've already heard, MCA is now talking about October, not September, for the next round of funding. And they're talking something in the range of $40 million. 30 to 40 is what I heard. Sorry, I'm sucking on Tic Tacs. 30 to 40 million.
Okay. Stephen, would you like to quickly lay out what we're thinking for the first meeting?
Very nice meeting. Simply telling them that as the rules are shaping up, it looks like there's a strong bias for public-private partnerships. And therefore, we'd like to do that together with LCI. And we think that in the scoring of the applications, that will be important. And there will also be other elements in the scoring of the applications that we're going to want to pay attention to, including speed, cost, availability. But that really, at this moment in time, the process rules are not clear enough. The press release, by the way, was today, July 14th, dated, which relates to the 150 million so far that that they know they have. And there are 4 parts. That 150 is broken into 4 parts. So as the rules become known, we would like to go down the application road together. Probably there will be multiple applications because there will be multiple program grants. So at this point, all we're asking you to do, Ms. Manning, is agree that we will do this jointly. And that we would then work together on keeping an eye on the timetable.
I think we can mention that there is a specific portion of that 150 million that is dedicated or targeted to the Reach Me Last Mile, which is exactly the area we're addressing.
Right. And that's the one that is where the rules are most advanced. But that's all we would say. And by the way, we also agreed on who our reps would be to negotiate this, which would be the Steve Hand and Josh Gerritsen, all agreeing that since I pay the most and have the worst service, it's obvious that I'm disqualified from negotiating.
I understand you think that carries weight, but if we had to vote again, I'm not sure that would sway me to keep you out of this mess.
So anyway, so that's what we agreed.
Right.
That covers it. And the select board is going to talk about this at our next meeting, meet with our town attorney and go from there. And we hope to reach out to them as soon as we have that meeting, so we can get this conversation started.
Good. And if you need me to present anything to the board or to discuss anything about the report, feel free to reach out when the appropriate time comes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to participate in ongoing meetings as you see fit. As I told you before, I'm like a bad penny. I keep coming back. So feel free to, use me as you see fit or not, or whatever works.
Our term runs out September 30th, so we were hoping to be able to do a report like that. It would include you prior to the end of our term.
Yeah, fair enough. Sounds good.
Can I ask about our term running out? Because I know that it said something about if we had grants we were pursuing, that the committee would still go forward.
Everyone was reappointed.
I know on June, but our end date is September 30th.
Right. The charge for the committee. Yeah.
Charge of the committee, but we're going to be pursuing grants in October.
As of right now, we won't be, because we won't be a committee. I guess for now, let's just see how far we get.
One of the recommendations in our final transmittal may be to reappoint
Somebody
or redo the broadband committee to go forth on grants.
Right. Yeah, pursuing
Saying
grants.
if one of the things that we've run into the past is that the committee was disbanded and we had grants to write, and if you're not a viable committee, then what do you do? So I would say sometime prior to the 30th, we give ourselves an extra couple of months to get some of this work done. The other part of it is the other thing that I don't know how that fits into, and it's something that Mark had in his report, is digital literacy. And it would also be another incentive is the equity grant that we actually, I believe, have funding for, or I believe that, when does that come into it? And does the select board take this over, or do we initiate it? Those are things I don't know.
As of right now, there's no movement on it. I would say if the committee wants the town to still pursue the digital equity portion, that should be in our written statement, saying we still think that the town should spend the money and pursue that. So that would be the next step for us.
Because I think this would also be, this is just because I've talked to Susan Silverio a little bit, who's head of the comp plan, that this would be that digital literacy and the comprehensive plan of the future of the town seem to dovetail with each other. So I'm just saying, if we're looking for partners or people who, I believe it was in the 206, a comprehensive plan was broadband. So I'm just trying to think of who do we partner with, or who does the select board partner with, whoever starts to proceed, do these things.
Jordan.
I had thought that we had already approved, that there was already money set aside for the
Waldo County
For the-
ARPA funds.
for the digital equity survey.
Is there? Maybe
I
I'm
thought,
mistaken.
but I didn't want to get into it. I mean, I could swear that
I believe so.
that we had approved like apportioning it from the cut of the 20,000 that we got. from
That's
Waldo
right.
County.
Okay.
Can you
Well, then
check,
I'm
or
totally
can one of the two
mistaken.
of you was check, and
Yeah.
just, because if that is not the case, then certainly what Arlene is saying we should do. But I thought it was already done. Now, the other point that Arlene is making is whenever it's done, it has to be presented to somebody. So if the broadband committee doesn't exist, then it would go, I guess, straight to the select board.
Yeah.
But that's one of I mean, it's pretty clear to me that the broadband committee, unfortunately, should continue to exist because there are going to be multiple rounds of applications. And if the approach we're suggesting is that every one of those be a public-private partnership, unless the select board wants to step into the place of doing each of those directly,
They don't.
which I would doubt, then they would need some committee or designee to keep doing it. But this is not going to be over September 30th for sure.
But I would say before we broach that topic with the select board, move a little further. I know that some members of the board, well, they want to see progress on the charge before asking for.
Oh, well, that's why we're doing that's why we're reporting to them on what we've done on Mark's report and on all the other things we've done and the mapping and the broadband speed testing and all of that.
Right.
Absolutely. And the fact that we're recommending going with this strategy vis-a-vis LCI. I think that's a perfectly respectable, recap of, I think we've done real stuff, but I don't know how many meetings, I don't know if they take recess in August or how any of that works, but, what Arlene is saying is that there should be some eye toward continuing the life of the broadband committee beyond that.
Been an ongoing struggle for 4 iterations of the broadband.
3 so far.
Is this the
This is
fourth
version
one that's
3.
coming together now?
This is
V3.
3.0 right now.
Oh, it is 3. Really?
Yeah, I keep them in separate files, yes.
Me too. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else for Mark?
Just an expression of gratitude.
Yeah.
So there was,
Yeah.
sorry. So there was a motion made at one of the March select board meetings to engage the Digital Equity Center to prepare a digital equity inclusion plan for the town at a cost of $2,500 with funds to come from the Waldo County ARPA funds.
Great.
So it's, okay,
So we need to follow up on that.
okay, yeah.
Well, Mark, I think
Yeah.
Susan, I think it's on her agenda, right?
That's a good question because I thought it was, Steve.
I
I thought it was, but I think we had told her about this, or somebody, you or I had told her about this, I would think. And she should probably be invited, probably like this, via Zoom to the committee at some point once you decide you're able to move forward. At least have a preliminary discussion with her, I would think would be helpful.
Totally space that we never put.
Maybe I would, I don't know if it takes a motion, but I would suggest that our committee chair reaches out to her like Mark just suggested and gets an update, reminds her that this was approved, as Steve Hand just repeated, and then tries to get an update from her on when she might, work on that, just so we establish a fresh contact to make sure it's on everyone's radar. And whenever it is that she says, that would also be relevant for the select board to understand what would a post September 30 Broadband Committee 4.0, what would they do? One of the things they would do is receive and oversee the digital equity work.
Mark, how long does it take Susan to put together the plan?
Not particularly long. I would think a couple of months at the most. She's got it. She's got a pretty good idea about what she wants to do in your town, I think. He reminds me that she knows about this, and I'm sure it's on her list. So what she will want to know is the nuance of how the committee feels, or the things that the committee thinks needs to be thought about when she gives a sort of a brief presentation of what she typically does. She does like to customize her project or her reports to the town. So, and she can do that in a variety of ways, but I don't think it would take very long. The question is whether or not you could get it before September 30th, when you all, I don't know what, become fairy dust or something, right?
Sure.
Watch it. Well, I think one thing I would say is that we should give her what we have. We should give her the broadband speed test data. We should give her the mapping work. I mean, she should have the benefit of whatever it is we already have, which we should explain to her in this refresher meeting. Because I would think that would all be stuff she would want to use.
Okay.
And we should also tell LCI in any preliminary note that we're also pursuing this, because Mark pointed it out, and that would be another layer that we're actually looking for everyone who is having issues with connecting, or for some reason also doesn't feel the necessity of it at this point. So I think, and I know there are people in town who, and I don't know them personally, but I know there are people in town who aren't using the internet for whatever reason.
So it sounds like we want to contact her and get her on our own agenda. Is it up to us to contact her or the select board?
I don't see any issue with us
I mean,
contacting her.
an action item for this committee. I think we
Yeah.
would just do that.
If the funding
Let's
already
take it on. Well, is there a consensus that we should take it on?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Since that was, should we ask David what the process, what's happened on that so far, since it came out of a select board meeting?
Yeah. Let me I'll see if he's, I mean, maybe he's been in contact with her. I don't know. So
March 28th, 5-0 was the vote.
okay, great. I'm sure that passed the town meeting as well. Okay. Okay, great. Anything else for Mark? If not, we can let him go. All
Once
right.
again, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark, we'll actually, do we want to choose our next meeting date right now?
It's always the most difficult part of every meeting.
Well, do we want to know when Susan's available? I mean, that'd be a great one to get in at. I guess the question is, what do we have to meet about other than Susan at this point?
Oh, are we meeting after the LCI meeting? That makes sense.
The hope would be that it would be after the first LCI meeting. Yeah.
So we could, those are both unknown, Susan and the LCI meeting. So
Yeah.
4 weeks,
3 or 4 weeks after.
3 or 4.
That would be the 11th. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we say, yeah, Thursday, August 11th. And if there's a really pressing reason to meet before that, then we can do that. Mark, are you available that day?
It looks like I am. Yep.
Great.
I'm available for 1 hour.
Okay. We'll try to be, very efficient.
Works for me.
Okay, great.
I'll probably be covered in blueberries, but I'll be blueberry harvest week.
It's the week.
oh, maybe I'll come in person then. If there's
If you place your order, you'll get some berries.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark.
Hey,
Thanks,
thanks
Mark.
again. Appreciate it. All right. Be in touch. Take
All
care.
right. Bye.
Steve, I just got a question for you. Mapping data is something that I work with too. So I was looking at the document. The only difference is South Cobtown Road ends at pole 811. Is that the single change to the,
Yes.
great. And you don't happen to have a house number there or anything, do you? I'll just have to drop it there.
There was no house numbers to be had.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any action items to bring up that we haven't already discussed? No? Okay. Any non-agenda items that are related to broadband?
Move we adjourn?
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn by Dave.
Do we have the action? Are there any action items before you?
No additional action items. Okay, so we have a motion from Dave to adjourn, a second from Jordan. Any discussion? All right, Arlene, how do you vote?
Let's leave.
Okay, Michael,
Yep.
Steve,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
okay, and me, yes. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.